NIJJAAS Department 7112 West Oakland Place, Kennewick, Washington, which is the City Hall, has the American dispute of the COVID-19 policy, regulations, and the services of the ANCRES of society. And COVID-19 policy regulation services carries this. Got this COVID-19 anyway. Washington prosecutor. We're in City Hall. First and last name, income, society, Social Security number, driver's license, birth certificate, which are at the Social Security office. Getting the Social Security card. You only are allowed 10 in your whole lifetime, and the lifetime incomes for direct deposits, EFT transactions. That covers the administration in City Hall in Kennewick and Richland, and also the services they have in the administration of COVID-19. In that federal courthouse, 825 federal courthouse is Patty Murray, Ms. Campbell, Ms. Andy Miller, Mrs. Taylor, and also the increments of the service has Norma Rodriguez, the judge administration of COVID-19 position, Mr. Judge Mitchell, and also Carrie L. Rung. And those replacements and services have to be taken in the serious considerations of the COVID-19 policy, regulation, and service. And in the federal courthouse, Patty Murray, Ms. Cantwell. President's primary election, and Mr. Senator McCain goes way, way back. Now, Senator McCain goes way back when Norma Rodriguez was the administrator of COVID-19 policy regulation, as Felix Barela drove Norma Rodriguez and her administration COVID-19 family members in the back of a Ford Mustang. Now that Ford Mustang carries a COVID-19 policy automatic shifter 327-305, and also a most powerful engine made in mankind for the Washington State Patrol units, with the executive order carrying the executive composition and the blueprints, the automatic shifter, and also the automatic filter system that has a blow clue systems that they carry in the Bogota, which is V12, V10, V12 Dodge Viper, the Ferrari, and also the GTB 599 and the 699 Ferrari. High competition series in Ferrari. Yeah, upkeeping on the Chevy Corvette Stingrays and also the Stingrays ZR1. And new competition Camaros, and also the IROCs, which are merged with the Camaros, and the IROCs composition with the Cougar shifter automatic shifters with the 327-305, and also the Windsor. The Windsor has these seals on these Windsors, and those Windsors carry a COVID-19 policy regulation service administration office. They have the curbside, and this curbside carry the shore Columbia River, which was done at the Blue Bridge, the boat race weekend, where the gates and foundation service of the COVID-19 executive order has been established for the protesters and rioters, and also exemplary services for the COVID-19 exempt services are related to see the American Harmony. Now, American Harmony has an executive order, direct AFT transactions, insurance, online services at the Kennewick City Hall. You do that on your laptop and get the administrative documents served, signed, and bring to Andy Miller's office upstairs at 712 West Oakland Place, Kennewick, Washington, 99326. Mrs. Perry, Mrs. Cantwell, and also Mr. and Mrs. Senator McCain, which is at Miller's Green Home, James Green, and Fred Trump, which resides at Miller's Prison, and also and Mrs. Ivanka Trump, and that's a Vox mother, administrative mother, and father, and biological mother, biological American Harmony. Now, this has been here since George Washington was the president of the United States. Now, George Washington walked on the Columbia River in the back Sacagawea apartment complex, and the Sacagawea apartments has a Lewis and Clark High School, and Lewis and Clark High School has a George Washington emblem and Social Security office down Sprague. Now, the Sprague has this outlet, an outlet casting on a cast iron skillet, which is an anchoring and boot that carries the tyranny and services for routing and porting and importing, exporting, shipping and receiving. And also those are seamen, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, Coast Guards. And these airmen services implied the George Washington Bridge, which is the Blue Bridge. They colored it blue because of the Navy Department. The Green Bridge got pulled down, which this is the left over from the Green Bridge. The Green Bridge carries a COVID-19 policy which is called the Cable Bridge, which is headless, H-A-D-L-E-R. Now George Washington walked, and the ratification of the service where they're porting. Generations and centuries proved Ben Franklin, and Ben Franklin was the inventor of electricity. And he was inventor of electricity, and that's the first president and the 16th president. This is the South Lawn J. Mueller's funeral home. This is the 20th immediate family members of George Washington. The services they have for the Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines was the counterparts. Army and Navy, and also the Army and Navy had to cross the bridge. The Navy Department has to cross the bridge. Coast Guard has to cross the bridge. Navy, Army, and these elite forces and Sir George Washington, which is Mr. Colin Powell. Now, Colin Powell, his COVID-19, his administration of COVID executive order, because of the first and last of direct deposit and showing up in his front yard, in his backyard, and also inside the upstairs, downstairs, in his bedroom. Mr. Colin Powell loves the administration COVID-19 policy regulation service of his two signatures. Why I did it twice? Because when you sign FELIX BRR once, and you sign FELIX BRL twice, and you say, well, Bill Gates and Foundation walk with him at the George Washington Bridge, walk with him at the Starbucks Cafe, Mrs. Coffee, Mrs. Pelto. Mrs. Coffee lives on the far top third floor. Mrs. Pelto lives on the top third floor on the other side, on the south side lawn of the White House. Mrs. Coffee and Mrs. Pelto and Mr. Colin Powell lives on the top captain quarters nest. See, a long time ago, there are artifacts and first name, last name pictures all illustrated all over this front lawn of the COVID-19, which is ported. You won't see that. It's all erased, and they took the erased information without approval. Now George Washington walks all the way across the view. This liquor sub has a tendency of services of surface on a global satellite position satellite that is carried by Air Force One. And Doomsday. Doomsday is Nebraska, Mexican, North Carolina, Lincoln. George Washington, first president of the United States, with the 6 executive presidents and 6 in Geneva, NATO Geneva Convention. NATO Geneva Convention, the signature compromise is right here. The only person who can do that is the owner. So we're going to lower the casket, the urns and services, and wide open. And they're sad consequences because they've been warned and fabricated and administrated in front of everybody, and they will not listen.